If you've been wanting to start listening to audiobooks and start working them more into your overall reading, then this video is for you. I'm about to make it really easy for you. I'm Allison, and I talk here about books and all things reading. If you spend a lot of time in your life reading print books, you may find that switching or adding audiobooks in feels a little bit awkward. It definitely did for me when I first started listening to audiobooks a few years ago. I actually did not like it at first. Felt like I couldn't pay attention, I wasn't following the story very well. But I kind of kept at it. I knew that a lot of people really enjoyed audiobooks, and wanted to get into it more as well, particularly because at the time I was doing a lot of driving, and I thought audiobooks would make that a little bit more enjoyable. I found that I kind of had to train myself to listen to audiobooks, to pay attention, to follow the story, and to understand the types of books that worked for me. So here are my best tips if you too are trying to get into audiobooks. The first is to figure out when you want to listen. Now, as I mentioned, for me, at the time when I started listening, it was when I was driving. That was pretty much the only time I ever listened to audiobooks. Some other good times to listen might be when you're doing chores around the house. I like to listen when I'm doing laundry, sometimes when I'm cleaning, when I'm cooking. It really kind of keeps me going whenever I'm doing chores. I would recommend maybe not starting with all of these, but start working them into small times during your day, during your life when you can consciously tell yourself, I'm going to turn on my audiobook during that time. And make it a time when you're not distracted by a lot of other things. There's not a lot of other people around, people trying to talk to you. You're not distracted by your phone. As I'm recording this, it's kind of spring, summertime. We're spending a lot more time outside, and this is the perfect time to start getting into audiobooks. I love to listen when I go for walks, when I take my dog for walks, when I'm doing yard work outside. So if you too find yourself spending more time outside, walking, doing yard work, things like that, think about putting on an audiobook during those times. You may find that you really get into what you're doing and you find some nice light audiobooks to keep you going. The next thing that's really important for audiobook listening is to choose audiobooks that you enjoy. Now, you might find that your audiobook style actually differs a little bit from your print reading style. I certainly found this when I first started getting into the audiobooks. My inclination in print reading is usually towards a little bit heavier, more literary books, and that doesn't always work for me in audiobook. In audiobook, I like faster pace, a little bit more plot driven, so it's easier to follow, less character driven. So books that work for me in audiobook, I like romance. They're easy to follow, kind of easy to get into. I like fast paced mysteries. Those work really well for me. I also like memoirs, which I actually rarely read in print form, but I really like somebody telling me the story of their lives themselves in audiobook format, and kind of bonus points if the author themselves is narrating. So give yourself some latitude to try out different genres, different styles to see what actually works for you in audiobook. And part of what I've realized about myself is that my audiobook style has a lot to do with my overall learning style. So I tend to be much more of a visual learner rather than an auditory learner. My memory is better when I see something in print. So if something tends to be kind of more difficult content or a little bit harder to follow, my brain doesn't seem to process it as well in audiobook formats. And that definitely affects the types of books that I gravitate towards. I mentioned that I kind of had to train myself to listen to audiobooks. So as I've gotten better at listening to audiobooks and more comfortable paying attention and keeping my mind focused on the book, I am able to listen to and follow more literary books, sometimes more difficult nonfiction books. But it just sort of depends again on your listening and learning style and really what works for you. So definitely search for books that you'll enjoy and what you will pay attention to. You may also want to start with shorter books. Shorter books can be a good way to help you start building your attention span, start learning what types of books work for you. There are definitely shorter adult novels or nonfiction books that you could try out. Another thing to consider might also be middle grade books or young adult books. I enjoy reading these sometimes, especially with my kids anyway, but they do tend to be a little bit easier to follow, a little bit shorter sometimes. And they can be a really good place to start with audiobooks. So if you are looking for some shorter audiobooks to start out with, definitely don't discount the middle grade and the young adult sections. There can be some really great options there for you as well. Next is to make sure that you're staying engaged while listening. Make liberal use of your pause button if you find yourself getting distracted or kind of losing track of your audiobook. And headphones with an easily accessible pause button on it make this really easy to do. Another thing that I often do if I get distracted or if I just sort of need to refresh my memory, if I've stopped the audiobook and come back the next day or something, is to use that back button. A lot of apps offer the option to go back 15 seconds or more, and sometimes you can customize this amount as well. I'll find myself pressing it multiple times just to take myself back to a place where I can easily pick up on the story again. And using headphones in general is often key for me to stay immersed in an audiobook. And I have several different kinds that I use. My favorite kind, especially because I like to listen to audiobooks while walking, is these bone conduction headphones. These are called aftershocks. And what they do is they kind of sit right over your ears here, but they don't go inside your ears. They actually sort of sit on your cheekbones. So you can hear everything around you while you're listening, and it's definitely much safer. I can hear people approaching me from behind. I hear cars, everything going on around me while I listen to the audiobook. So these are my favorite. Again, look for bone conduction headphones. I will try to link the ones that I have below. But I also have several other types of headphones that I occasionally will use. Now, in the winter, I like to use this headband type headphones, and these have little headphones kind of right inside that sit over your ears. But it just kind of keeps you a little bit warmer if you're out walking in the cold weather and listening. I also find that I can hear pretty well everything that's going around me when I'm wearing these. I do keep the volume a little bit lower than I might with the bone conduction headphones. Now, I will use regular headphones, kind of go inside my ears if I'm inside the house or if I'm doing yard work and I need to block out, the lawnmower, things like that. And these also tend to work better for me if I'm working out and listening because I can lay down and the band doesn't get in the way. It doesn't bump into, weight bars or things like that. So I keep a lot of different headphones around depending on what I'm doing. Obviously, you don't need multiple types of headphones. Pick what works best for you. But these are three options that work really well for me in different types of listening scenarios. Another thing to pay attention to make sure you're staying engaged in your book, because our audiobooks tend to be on our phones, just pay attention to when you might pick up your phone because it is so close and just start kind of randomly reading emails or scrolling through social media, reading news, texts, anything like that. It's very easy to do. We do it a lot throughout the day. But once you start doing that when you're listening to your audiobook, a few minutes can go by and you'll find that you completely lost the thread of whatever was being said on your book. So just pay attention to what you're doing. Pause your audiobook if you're doing that and start it up again once you're done. And it can also be a great way to kind of pull yourself away from the social media and all of those distractions on your phone too. Give yourself a couple minutes to check whatever it is you're going to check and then consciously turn your audiobook back on, turn your screen off on your phone, and you're back and running. So, something else you may want to do when you're picking audiobooks is experiment with different narration styles. Now, this can be particular to the narrator, their voice, their tone, even the speed of their narration. Keep in mind as well that you can speed up the pace of narration if you find it a little bit slow. I usually tend to start at about 1.5 and see how that works for me, and then I'll go up and down from there depending on what I need for comfortable listening. But beyond that, you may also want to consider that some audiobooks have multiple narrators. There are even full cast audiobooks that can be an entire sort of theatrical experience. Like think of Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. That's a super popular full cast audiobook. Other audiobooks may have just a couple of narrators that kind of switch off between the characters. One recent one that I read is a romance novel called Forget Me Not that has two narrators. Another great one is called 123 by Lori Frankel, and that's about triplets, and each of the triplets has their own narrator, and they have very different voices. So everyone has different preferences of their type of narration that they prefer. I actually tend not to prefer the full cast audiobooks. I tend to lose track of which character is speaking when there are so many different actors jumping into the narration. But I do like audiobooks that have maybe 2 to 3 narrators. And of course, a single narrator that can do multiple voices and characters very well is always a great choice. Something else to consider is keeping a reading journal. Now, I find that this works really well for me because of that visual versus auditory memory and learning preference that I have. So if I'm out walking and listening to an audiobook, especially something that really resonates with me and I really want to remember it, I often will just jot down a few notes about it when I get home and have a chance to do that. I also like to make notes about any narrators that I find particularly engaging or some that I don't like as well, because it helps me with choosing audiobooks in the future. After having listened to so many audiobooks now, I actually have a few favorite narrators, and I will listen to almost anything that they narrate, both because I trust the types of books that they tend to narrate, but also I know that their style is very engaging for me and that I can listen to just about anything that they read. So, next, I recommend trying a variety of genres. Even try some books that you think are completely out of your wheelhouse. Now, I mentioned previously, you may find that your audiobook style is a little bit different than your print reading style. And I have definitely found this in my own listening. But I've also found that I can pick up some books in audiobook that I almost never will pick up in print. One example is sci fi. I don't listen to or read a lot of sci fi in print, but I have definitely listened to a few more sci fi books in audio than I have ever read before. So it's a really good way to expose yourself to new genres, new authors, and new types of books. So, next is to think about all of the ways that you can multitask while listening. So, my first tip was to find just a couple of ways that you can get started. But once you kind of find your groove with those normal ways of listening, think about all of the other things you can do. I will listen while folding laundry, while mowing the lawn, while pulling weeds, while taking walks, sometimes while cooking. I also like to listen while working out. And in particular for me, I like to listen while lifting weights. Audiobooks don't work quite as well for me when I'm doing cardio. But again, I do love audiobooks on a good long walk. So just start thinking about all of those little times during the day when you might just flip on your audiobook, get immersed in a book for a few moments, and just sort of boost your mood. Since I do tend to like lighter and faster paced books, while I'm listening, it does actually kind of serve as a little bit of a mood boost for me throughout the day to listen to my audiobook, even for just a few minutes. Also, think about any time you're traveling, running errands for sure, but long distance road trips. Think about any audiobooks that everybody in the car could enjoy. It can really help keep everybody in the car entertained if you have a great audiobook going. Also, plane travel. I love to put in my headphones, close my eyes, and just listen to an audiobook on a plane ride. Air travel can be awful these days, and immersing yourself in an audiobook to get you through it can be a great way to just make it a little bit more bearable. So, another interesting tip that I am still experimenting with is actually reading the audiobook along with the print version. And this will really keep you immersed in the book itself. This isn't a way that you can multitask while listening, but especially if you have a book that you find is a little bit more difficult, maybe it's kind of a dense nonfiction book or a classic novel that you've been trying to get through. Listening while reading can kind of give you the best of both the auditory and the visual processing that I mentioned previously. Now, again, I haven't done this a lot, but I am planning to give it a try with some classic novels that I've been meaning to get to, especially some that I know have particularly great narrators. So, those are my best audiobook tips, but I would love to know what works for you for listening to audiobooks, particularly if you found it a little bit difficult to get into them like I did. Also, let me know what some of your hangups are with audiobooks. Why, if you're having trouble with them, why are you having trouble? What is it about them that does or does not work for you? Is it finding the right books, finding time to listen, finding ways to listen? Let me know in the comments, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching.